Hi, I'm Denise, host of the Working Moms Redefined podcast. Let's join together as we lessen the hold of mom guilt in our lives, thrive in our careers, and raise great kids. You are doing enough. Let us boost your confidence today on this episode of the Working Moms Redefined podcast. Parents hold a lot of responsibilities. We don't want to mess our kids up. And I don't know about you, but something that I know that I can use some help in is teaching our kids how to be responsible with money. Now, growing up in a farming family, my mom still to this day balances the checkbook. So do I. And yet, is that something that I'm going to need to be teaching my children? That is small scale. And then how do we look long term? What does investing and teaching our kids about investments look like? We have an expert with us. Her name is Beth Underhill. She is the founder of Lifestyle Equities Group and Investing with Beth. She empowers families just like yours and mine, as well as investors, to grow and protect wealth through real estate. How interesting. We also dive in about private lending and her property legacy loop strategy with a passion to really help and to teach that financial education piece with, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to learn from somebody, I want somebody with a proven track record. And Beth has that. She's dedicated to help others build a freedom-based lifestyle, stewardship, and legacy across generations. Sounds pretty cool, right? Beth enjoys life with her husband, daughter, and their dogs out of Cincinnati. And when she's not structuring deals or mentoring investors, she is in the gym, lifting weights and embodying the same discipline that she has used in her business to drive such success in wealth creation. Beth, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Denise, for having me, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I appreciate that.
Very much warranted. And Beth, if you are a listener right now and you are hearing all of these awesome things about you, and yet, what is one of the biggest takeaways that you hope listeners leave with after our time together today?
I think the biggest thing that I want listeners to understand is that wealth isn't about having more. It's about having options. So freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom of impact, and that really anybody can build wealth if they intentionally want to do so. And that is truly made by aligning your money decisions with your values. And when you do that, and wealth is different for everybody, right? I mean, some people define wealth as, how many dollars you have in your bank account or the things that you have. For me, wealth looks a little bit different, but I think it's important for everyone to decide what does wealth look like for them and then intentionally create and basically align your money, your values all with that, and you will experience what wealth truly is. I mean, wealth really starts on the inside and then it goes from there.
Let's dive right in. How do you define wealth for you, Beth?
Um, for me, wealth starts, as I said, wealth starts within. When I started really understanding, okay, how was I going to build wealth? It wasn't going to be about chasing the next real estate deal, the next business, or creating the next business, or doing all the things, figuring out, should I invest in the stock market or not? It was really about, okay, so what are my values? Who I am as an individual? What do I define myself as? How do others see me? How do I want others to see me? And from there, it's really about then starting to kind of make over who Beth is based off of what it is that I wrote down. And that comes from, things like, okay, what are the foods I choose to eat? What are the daily habits that I decide I'm going to implore? If it's fitness, if it's water, if it's walking, if it's listening to, 30 minutes of a podcast, if it's voice loops, I love voice loops, all of those sort of things to make me believe, number one, that I can go create wealth and wealth in the sense of, from the dollar sign standpoint, but also create wealth for other people. And that's through giving and helping and, being impactful. Just, every single day, setting your intentions to say, how am I going to impact? The people that I love and that I care about. And that's through, thoughtful intentions, with your words, your actions, just responding to even text messages in a kind and generous way. So that's kind of how wealth started for me. It was like, okay, it's got to start internally so that externally then I can exude, what's coming from within, and that's just going to start to create, this flow of abundance. So that's for me.
Beautiful. And I can't get past the fact that in that answer, Beth, there was no mention of dollars.
No.
I think that's a mind shift for some of us. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. I think everyone, and I think I mentioned earlier, people equate, wealth with the dollar sign or wealth with the things, and, we've heard this before. Some of the wealthiest people are the unhappiest people, so does that truly make them wealthy? And not necessarily. We all have an expiration date, right? So when that time comes, I would hope that if I'm, looking back at my life and seeing, what it is that I did or who I impacted or, and really for me, the biggest wealth transfer is not going to be what I leave to my daughter in the dollars and cents. It's what I'm going to leave to her in terms of how she lives her life, how she treats other people, what her relationships are going to look like. Did she learn a single thing from me? And if she did, then I have transferred a level of wealth that you can't put a dollar sign, you can't attach a dollar sign to that.
Which almost, I would say, gives parents a sigh of relief to know you're doing well. And yet if you want to do even better or different, this is the place to be. I want to know, Beth, about your passion, but before we get to that, I have to go back to you said you love voice loops. Excuse my ignorance. Please explain what voice loops are.
Oh, I'm happy to explain what voice loops are. I use these on a daily basis. And this comes from a mastermind that I was involved in. So they challenged us to make a voice loop. And the voice loop was really designed to, list out, who you are as an individual so that you can remind yourself, all the time, every single day. And so these voice loops are about a minute long, um, and it's all about who Beth is. And it's really designed to help someone from, the mindset shift of, instead of taking all the negative in and believing what the world wants to tell you or wants to decide who you're going to be, you're commanding your subconscious to say, no, this is who I really am. So mine starts off with, I am Beth and I am prosperity. And then it goes on from there. And I can memorize it, I can spout it off, I can say it over and over now that I've listened to it enough times. But essentially, it's a minute long. And there's this app called Parrot, and I didn't know about it. So I downloaded it. I recorded a voice loop and I just started listening to it over and over and over and over. And it's awesome. On some mornings when I'm not in the gym, I'll go to I do this contrast therapy where I go 20 minutes in a sauna and then do 3 minutes of a cold plunge. And so while I'm in the sauna, I'm just listening to this voice loop over and over for almost 20 minutes. I've got two different ones, so I divide it up. One's for 10 minutes, the other one for the other 10 minutes. And it's really shifted, who I am. So when I look in the mirror now, I'm not looking at, oh gosh, I'm not this or I'm not that. It's really I am this, I am that. So there's a lot of I am statements, but that's how we can transform ourselves into really embracing, the beautiful person that we all were created to be. And so yeah, I've been doing the voice loops now since end of June, and it's been very transformative.
I can't wait. We are 5, 8 minutes in, and I already have a takeaway that I am going to be implementing today. Thank you, Beth. Your passion radiates. You can tell that you have a desire to help. And dare I say, you in a roundabout way are telling listeners before wealth can come to you in that abundance mindset, would you say that we have to really build a belief in ourselves that you are worth wealth at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for years, I did not believe that I deserved anything. And that, came from, oh gosh, just growing up, things come at you. I grew up in a family of five, love my family dearly, but we were all challenged with trying to gain the attention of mom and dad and so forth. And then I went through a very dark period in my life, 26 years battling an eating disorder. There was so much of that, trying to be perfect in so many ways, and so I battled that, and really it wasn't until I got to the other side of it that I started to realize, like, I have value, I am worthy. But I still didn't believe it, and it really, it's one of those things that we're not taught this kind of stuff. And I mean, it starts very early on now, even with kids so much younger. I mean, I didn't have social media growing up, right? So it was a heck of a lot easier to grow up without it, but we were still impacted, right? But now these kids, I mean, I've seen children with phones in their hands at age 8, and they're on, these apps and TikTok and so forth. And I think there's a place for all of it, and I think it can do a lot of good. But by the same token, wow, it can do a lot of damage. And, comparison is the thief of joy. And I do feel like there's a lot of joy being stolen right now simply because of the comparison that goes on. So in order to really, embrace what's coming at you. And I think things were probably coming at me 10, 12 years ago, but I didn't feel like I was worth it. And so therefore it was very easy um for me to push it out of my life. And now I'm like, no, 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 come at me, let me decide what it is that I'm going to push out of my life, because it maybe doesn't align with who I am as a person, my values, or just timing, whatever that looks like. But yes, you have to want to embrace it, want to believe it, want to believe that you deserve it. And I think that that's a piece that is often overlooked in terms of, when it comes to wealth, wealth building.
Peace in both senses of the words. PIECE, in the sense of you have to have that as part of the puzzle piece, if you will, while
Hmm.
also once you get there, there's a level of peace, PEACE. And I love that you say that because it's multifaceted and you help people in lots of ways. As you can hear her talk about this, and if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see her get so excited about this piece of the puzzle, if you will, with wealth. But where did you have this passion to be like, I'm going to make a career out of this with investing with Beth and a lifestyle equity group? That sounds so fancy and very foreign to yours truly.
Well, so much of this was, I mean, it was built. I mean, brick by brick. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Beth. So brick by brick, it was one of those things that I had to keep building on my experiences and overcoming adversity. And really, I do believe that um, people, are afraid of failing. And I feel like I'm someone that just has embraced it because it's happened so often, right? My husband and I both have had a very entrepreneurial, heart and spirit. And, when I first met him, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the male version of me. I'm so excited. This is awesome. And we have tried so many different things, and we have failed at multiple things, and we have still managed to be here on this earth and continually bounce back. And I do believe that it is because we've embraced the fact that, hey, stuff's going to happen and it's okay. And we will figure it out. And sometimes it's me figuring it out. Sometimes it's him figuring it out, whatever that looks like. Sometimes it's both of us figuring it out. But we've been through enough stuff to say that, okay, brick by brick, we're just going to keep, even if a few bricks fall, we're going to keep adding on bricks. And then we finally get to, this tower that we built. And so, when Lifestyle Equities Group came along, I was like, I need a name. I'm getting into real estate. I want to, be part of commercial acquisitions. What's that going to look like? So, I thought about, okay, um, equity, money and so forth, lifestyle, creating a lifestyle. So, Lifestyle Equities Group came about. Is it my forever, name of what I think, where I'm even at right now? No, not necessarily, but that's okay. It's sticking around and it houses, all of my commercial acquisitions. So that's fine. And then investing with Beth really, it kind of Lifestyle Equities Group morphed into investing with Beth because I wanted people to know, like, hey, I want you to invest with me, and together we're going to do this. And it's not necessarily just about investing in the physical sense, right? Of putting your dollars into deals. It's also about like, how can I, invest in you and what can I do to help you and creating this legacy wealth again, not just from the dollars and cents standpoint, but living life, as a legacy and doing so on purpose. There's plenty of books that talk about, living life on purpose and like the purpose built life. I think that's what it's called. And, I do believe like when I go to bed at night, I want to make sure that my 24 hours or however many hours that that I was awake and up, that I actually did something that was purposeful. And so that if, tomorrow, for whatever reason, I expired, at least I can say that, hey, this day, impacted, meant something, and I can sleep well at night. I think, you know what? When you sleep well at night, that's a good sign that you're doing something right. It's when you are, you've got so much on your mind, you can't get a good night's rest. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's that there's just, you're in too many different directions, or there's things that are weighing you down, stressing you out, and you're not really living that purposeful life that, you're creating that wealth from within.
As you can tell, Beth is speaking from experience in that. You can tell that she has had some sleepless nights. But that then also means that your work now is aligned with those values that you referenced. And so you kind of already given a guide as to how do we start working towards the thought of, hey, you don't need to necessarily work hard for money, but maybe shift that mindset to say how to make our money work for us. That's an interesting mindset shift for some. How do people start?
Education, number one. And, I think the one thing that um, people tend to think is that financial literacy is inherited, and it's not. It can be taught. It's something that if someone has a desire to learn more about money, the velocity of money, how to make money work for you as opposed to you working for it, it's something that there's YouTube University is out there. You can go learn from all different strategies. If you are an audio person, there's plenty out there. If you like to read, there's plenty out there. And that's really what I started doing. I was like, I need to educate myself. I knew nothing about investing in commercial real estate, for instance. And I thought, well, what better way to learn than to just jump right in? I started attending masterminds, events, and so forth. I was being discerning in terms of where I was going to go, what kind of money I was going to spend. I started off locally. There's plenty of things that, plenty of places you can be able to places and things that you can I guess invest in, so to speak, to learn from that aren't going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, you hear of masterminds that are like 40,000, 50,000. It's like, no, you don't need to start there. That's sometimes throwing good money after bad. So you have to be careful with that. But for me, really, it's I would say education is number one. Understand, what it is that you gravitate towards. Not everybody is a stock person. I don't want to learn about stocks. Like, it doesn't excite me at all. I pay attention to it because I think that to some degree it helps benchmark just what's going on in the economy, what people are thinking, how they're feeling, what's driving them and so forth. But that doesn't excite me. Real estate excites me. Insurance excites me. Understanding the velocity of money, how I compounding interest and, where I can put my dollars in order to earn. Business, small business, growing a small business, wealth, the largest, some of the wealthiest individuals really have become wealthy through business. And most people don't realize that. Some people think that, oh, you got to be in the stock market, you have to be investing and so forth. But really, it's small business that have created the majority of wealth in this country. And so again, learning, understanding, seeing what someone, whatever, whoever it is, that we're speaking to out there, what do you gravitate towards? What are you passionate about? If you like real estate, figure out like what area of real estate makes sense. If it's something else, if maybe you want to start a small business, okay, well, I created 3 different small businesses in addition to the one that my husband and I currently own, which we've had since 1999. I love to cook, so I started a catering business. Great. It was highly successful. We catered to one of the largest hospitals here in Cincinnati, and we did all of their events, but I did it out of my own home. And eventually I was like, okay, we need to move this to a commissary, a kitchen of some sort. But I was pregnant at the time. And so my husband and I sat down and we weighed the pluses and the minuses, and we said, okay, well, I want to be there for my daughter. I don't want to be, you know, cooking for 450 people on a Saturday afternoon when I could be watching my daughter at a volleyball game or a soccer game. So, it choices, right? So then I took my next passion, which was golf, and I turned that into an internet-based business so I could stay at home, raise my daughter and then drop ship everything. And that was beautiful. We had a great run with that as well. And then I decided fitness was the next thing. So I had a brick and mortar. So, you can be whoever you want to be if there's something you gravitate towards. And each one of those businesses had, their own level of success in different ways. But ironically, it was, kind of the back-to-back businesses of a golf business and then a fitness studio, both catering to women, that I really developed this passion for wanting to help more women. And as I started to get involved in real estate and then in financial services as well too, I saw, wow, there's a huge disconnect here. There's not enough women in these spaces, and we need more women in these spaces. Why aren't women showing up? I was just at an event a couple weeks ago in Nashville. There were 2 women there and there were 35 guys. Financial services. And then the other woman, she left before we were able to take a picture. And so there's this picture of me and all these guys. And I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? But that's where the passion for helping women, really started to evolve, is just seeing the need of, okay, I want more of me in this space. What can I do to make that happen?
For the women that are listening to this and finding themselves saying inside, not externally, I can't do that. What would you say to them?
Yes, you can. There's no reason why you can't. You're telling yourself you can't. And I used to think, can I do this? And I'm like, why not? Like, what is the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But it's like, what is the quote by Michael Jordan? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. It's like, if I don't take that chance, then I'm never going to know. I don't want to look back on my life and say, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that, or, kicking yourself. I don't want to live like that anymore. I did that too much back in, my earlier days. And I never want to say I have regrets, but I can look back and say, gosh, there's some things that I could have done, and I wish I would have. And interestingly enough, my daughter has taught me a lot of that. She always What is the YOLO? You only live once, right? So I get that quite a bit when if we're texting back and forth and I'm like, "Oh, honey, I'm so happy that you're doing this." And she comes back with YOLO, YOLO. And I'm like, you know what? Seeing her just going out and living and experiencing, I'm like, I need to do the same. So for all the women out there that you think you can't, it's only because you're telling yourself that, but you can. And today is the day that you decide differently.
I love it. A thought that often comes to my mind is, well, why not me? If I find myself taking the next step and then maybe hesitating before I take a second, I find myself saying, well, why not me? I mean, may as well watch me. And so it's that internal dialogue that plays such a role. And in addition to saying today is the day that you start, what is one tip that you would like to give working moms to start seeing themselves as capable investors? Even putting that name behind them might sound scary, especially in a busy season. What's the tip?
It's a good question. And I do want to go back to that internal voice that is telling you you can't. That's where the voice loop can really start to change just how you feel about yourself. If you created a voice loop that says, I am a capable investor, and you know, go use Chat GPT to help you come up with, something that you want to, tell yourself day in and day out, that is going to be a mindset shift right there of you saying, yes, you know what, I can do this. Um, but yeah, really that tip is, I would say, the more you get educated, the more you start to surround yourself with the right people, the more you push yourself to go to networking events and start to talk to people. Put yourself in the rooms. That's where you really need to be, in the rooms, again, in the books, in the rooms, in the education. And you're going to find the more you do this, the more comfortable you become. That's how, like, when I started looking at, like, it was really easy to do something out of comfort, right? So I enjoyed cooking. So cooking was easy, right? So it was easy to go create a business. And it was because the cooking portion of it was easy. I was like, oh, I can figure out the marketing part. Okay, great. Golf, right? I knew what I would like if I were on the golf course. So that was easy. Fitness. I knew what kind of fitness classes I gravitated towards, and also did some research to see what the need was. But when it came to commercial real estate investing, I had no idea. All I knew is that one day someone had said to me, one of these days I'd like to buy an apartment building. And I looked at this individual, and he happened to be um an investor friend that had invested. We did a joint fix and flip together. I looked at him and I'm like, you're crazy. Like, that's only for the wealthy people. Like, only they can buy 100-unit apartment buildings. And as I started sitting on that a bit more, it was, kind of the aha moment. Like, why not me? Like, what is it that I need to know? And you know what? I was scared to death about getting into commercial real estate because I knew nothing about it, right? It wasn't like, oh, I've played golf before, so it's easy to know, like, what kind of glove I would like to wear if I were on the golf course and so forth. So, yeah, if you find yourself getting into something that you don't know anything about, well, the best place is to just jump into the water and start learning, because, if you dip your toe in, you're probably going to just pull that toe right back, and you're never gonna, it's like going into the swimming pool, and you, instead of just jumping in and you decide you're going to go down the stairs, like on the shallow end, and you start going in, and it takes a little bit longer than just, hey, you get right in and you start to feel comfortable right away in that cold water.
What a good comparison. And yet, I'm thinking for me, I want my kids to know all of this. I want our children to know that there is so much more than the dollar bill they get for doing a chore on the weekend. Before I really can teach them, I kind of need to teach myself. So I love the education piece so that I can build a confidence within myself. So then when I want to go really teaching our children how to be more responsible with our money, I feel more educated in that. Am I correct, Beth, in that you help parents teach that? What are some things that I can start implementing with our kids that can set them up on the right foot?
Oh, I mean, multiple things. I mean, at every stage in their life, and when I say stage, it could be if you kind of were to divide it out, so to speak, maybe ages 3 to 8, and then 8 to 15, and then 16 to 21 or so. I mean, you can be teaching your kids things along the way. If I were to take the first age group, ages 3 to 8, let's just say, I would probably start with something like, hey, 3 jars, or let them pick out like 3 buckets of some sort, whatever that might look like. Take them to Target, let them find, there's so many inexpensive things in the dollar section, that you can pick. And as they start to earn money, start to show them, hey, there are 3 buckets in which you can put your money. Actually, you could technically say there's more like four, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But first one is give. What are you going to give? So, what are you going to give, and to who are you going to give it to? So, you're earning money, right? Well, the tendency is, well, I want to keep it. I want to hold on to it. I want to go, spend it on myself. No, let's start understanding and learning what giving really does and the power of giving. Because honestly, you give, you're going to get that in return. I've seen that happen over and over and over. Then there's the bucket of saving, and for a 3-year old, 7-year old, we're just going to have the saving bucket. But that other bucket would be a saving bucket and an investing bucket. And then there's the bucket of spending. And so it's like, if we have $10, for instance, we're going to take a dollar of that. We're going to take 10% of those $10. We're going to put a dollar of it into the giving bucket. And then we're going to take the rest of it, the $9, and we're going to divide that depending on how we want to divide that. It could be a 60-40 split. It could be 50-50, whatever that looks like. And we're going to divide that out and put some in savings. And we're going to say, hey, this is how much that you now have to spend. And let's hypothetically say out of that $10, it's 50% goes to spending and 40% is going to go to savings. Awesome. Well, you've started to teach them like, hey, these are good strategies so that when they as they get older and they maybe earn that, paycheck because they're working at Chipotle or Chick-fil-A or something like that, in high school, they get that $200 paycheck. Awesome. This is how this bucket is going to look now. And you've already started to instill in them, some of those values. And the cool thing is that you can be doing that right alongside with them with your own money, with like, hey, here's how I'm going to start allocating, and it doesn't, the giving bucket doesn't have to be big, it's a start small, depending on, where you are with, budgeting and so forth. But those are things you can start to teach them as they start to move, as they start to get older. One really good, lesson is just to begin budgeting, right? Like starting to teach them like, okay, guess what? It's back to school time. And here's how much I'm going to allow you, here's the budget that you have for back to school clothes. And be able to start to show them, hey, how you can work within a budget and still look fashionable. I mean, there's plenty of options out there, but just teaching them, just the value of, okay, this isn't like just we're it's a free for all and we're going to spend as much as we, want to spend. No, it's we're going to start to learn exactly what this should look like as they start to work, if they are 16, they have a job and so forth. Well, guess what? Go open up that checking account with them, co-own it together, of course, and maybe then have a savings account where they can transfer money. They can deposit the money into the checking account. They can transfer some of the monies into the savings account. And that's a good time too to start to even show them, hey, there's these options out there. Like I started with my daughter. Charles Schwab has these stock slices that you can invest in. Very small amount. You can take $100 a month, and you can just put like you can divide it up as to where you want it to go. And I was like, hey, my daughter's name is Gia. I said, Gia, tell me, like, what are your three top like stores, brands, and so forth, So she's got like Target and, McDonald's and Nike and, and this was like back at the time when I first asked her. And so I said, okay, great. This is where I'm going to put like some of your money into it. So you own like a slice of their stock, but at least it's a place where they can go and they can look and they can see their money going up, down, and in all those fun things. Lots of opportunities, as, you go through the stages of life with your kids to teach them about money. And at the same time, too, you are learning yourself, right? You're learning just through being able to share with them and obviously it's important if you're not following through and doing the same thing as to what you're teaching, it's gonna up here, it's gonna start to kind of wear on you a bit, and you're gonna start to think twice about, wait a minute, this is what I want to be teaching them. I need to be doing the same.
I find it easy in the moments when, if we're going on a road trip on a Saturday and we go through a local coffee drive through and the kids are like, we want a drink. And I say, what did you do this week to earn money for you to be able to pay for this? Now, selfishly, is there a little part of that where I'm like, I don't want to spend $3 on hot chocolate for you, but my $7 latte, I have no problem. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but you know what? The next time that we were leaving, the kids said, hey, are we going to go to Farmhouse Coffee and you guys are going to get a drink? And I said, yes, we are. And Sydney, my 8-year-old, goes, I'll go grab some money. And I was like, you betcha. So, did I absolutely pay for her drink and take her money and then put it back into her jar? Yes, 100%. But I loved the initiative that she took. I love your explanation of the 3 jars. We have a similar setup, but it's not super pretty. And I know that this is silly, but I want it to look good. I wrote this down. We are going home today and we're going to Target. We're going to pick out some fun things, like you said, in the dollar section to be able to make it fun and pretty for them to do. Because I only imagine, and my parents did a fabulous job showing us how to budget. I would say sometimes I don't operate, though, as much as I would like from an abundancy mindset because my parents parented from their parents' ways and they were in the Great Depression. And so we save and you buy things not on a loan because we're a farm. So then you buy things when you have the money. And so there's a dynamic there of maybe investing. Yes, a 401k was great and that's what I was taught, but the dynamic of wealth, I think I probably could have learned a little bit more, but they did such a fabulous job. If you think back to your childhood, Beth, or your upbringing, what is something that you wish you had known maybe earlier that you want to share with parents now?
A couple things. The first is that money is it's neutral. It's neither good nor bad. And I do believe that they're like growing up, and this didn't just come from my parents, right? It was just kind of, it was the time period of, just how people viewed money. If there were people that had money, well, they're not good people, and they're rich because, and there was almost, not any sort of credibility given to them that they earned it or they deserved it necessarily, or that, if you had too much money, it was bad. And that you're a good person if you don't have a lot of money, or you do good, you must be doing good because you don't have a lot of money. So, money really is neutral, right? It's just a tool, and I wish I would have learned that so much sooner, because for me, I had equated money, to so many different things in my head, and even to my worthiness, that I wasn't worthy of money because I was doing bad things. So therefore, I must not be worthy of it. So yeah, it's that part was kind of a bummer to kind of get through life and then have the aha moment, and be able to say, oh my goodness, like it really was never bad nor good. It's just a tool, and that's all it is. So that's number one. Number two, just understanding the velocity of money and what it can do. So my father, he had an insurance policy, and there's a strategy that is talked about quite a bit called infinite banking. If you're not familiar with it, happy to educate anyone on it. It's a great strategy, and we can either talk about that at some point, or you can get in touch with me. But anyways, he had overfunded essentially a life insurance policy and utilized the overfunding, took out a policy loan, because of the cash value that he overfunded it with, and took out policy loans to then eventually pay for our college education with 5 kids. Some of us had scholarships, some of us didn't, but that was how he had financed the college education. Interestingly enough, he never shared that strategy with any of us. So as we were going, along in life, um, he received this phone call one day from the insurance company, and the insurance company says, "Well, you owe us all this money back." Well, he had taken out the money in the form of policy loans. And if you take it out in policy loans, you don't owe the money back. If you take it out in withdrawals, then that's a whole different story. I mean, you do owe the money back from a policy loan, but as long as the policy can support, if it's growing enough inside, it can support the loans, and then that's fine. But he was a little panicked, and then, we sorted through that. We figured out everything. But, upon his death, my mom received an inheritance that was the equivalent of whatever the death benefit was on the policy, less the policy loans that he had taken out. So it's a great strategy, right? And people use it to fund all kinds of things. He never taught us any of this. Ironically enough, here I am learning about this now, however many years later, and I become an insurance agent specifically so I can help other people implement this strategy as part of a financial tool that can help them, down the road, both as, a death benefit covering, any of their loved ones in case of a loss, and also too growing and accumulating cash value. So if they want to use, some of this cash value for college education, down payment on a house or anything like that, they can do so. But my father never said anything. So I think it's the other thing is just not having enough conversations about money itself. And I think I would implore, parents and especially moms, to have those conversations. Money is not something, it's not taboo. It's not something that shouldn't be talked about. Yet we do find that we get really uncomfortable when when the topic of money comes up, even if we're talking about it with family or friends. But most importantly, your immediate family, like your kids and so forth, that is when to really get them to feel comfortable about money, because the more comfortable they are with money, the better stewards they're actually going to be.
I need to know about this. What is this infinite insurance policy? Is that what it's called? Tell me more.
Well, it's a whole life insurance policy, but the strategy is called infinite banking. So you essentially are taking a whole life insurance policy. You are funding this policy. When I say upfront, it could be, it's generally over a period of, it can be, you know, 3 to 5 years. It could be a lump sum payment, as long as you're not funding it too much to where it becomes what they call a mech policy, but that's for another day. But anyways, you can fund these policies and then turn around, and within 60, 90 days, you can, take some of those funds back out and start to use them in other ways. So you see this like in real estate, for instance, where someone will have cash value that has accumulated in a policy. Um, they take out a policy loan and are charged maybe 5 or 6% simple interest. So simple interest is, of course, a key word right here. But they're not really removing money from their cash value per se. They're taking a loan out from the insurance company, okay? And you don't need to, all you do is sign on documents. You're not going through underwriting like what you typically would with a bank. But essentially your cash value is the collateral for that particular loan, okay? So you're pulling those funds out, and you may want to go private money lend and earn, 15% flat or annualized or something like that on those funds. So essentially, what you're doing is you're being able to arbitrage the difference between the 5 or 6% simple interest, and then, of course, whatever you're earning outside of the policy. Now, the real, interesting piece is that your policy acts as though the funds are still in there. So if you're earning interest in your policy still and in receiving dividends, then that acts as though like you still have the funds in there. So it's kind of putting your money to work in a couple of different places at the same time. And so it's a very powerful strategy that people can use. And at the same time, the most important piece is that there's a death benefit. So in the event that something does happen to you, your loved ones are, protected with something that can be, you know, that is passed along to them upon, you know, your death, your expiration.
Well done explaining what could be a hard concept. So interesting. Last question on this, and then we will move on. I know that you mentioned maybe, 3 to 5 years or a lump sum. What's the minimum look like to be able to do something like this, would you say?
It really all depends on how we design the policy. So that's a tough question, simply because it's going to be based off of death benefit, what makes sense, what someone is looking to do from a strategy standpoint. So that's going to be individualized.
And that is one way that you can work with Beth is when you have those types of conversations. And we will have ways to get a hold of her, contact her, email, Instagram within our show notes. And I love that thought, Beth, in that it is customized because that makes it doable for so many. I think sometimes what prevents people from going down this route of wealth and investment is because we might be fearful that we don't have enough to start. As we round out our time together, what would you say? First of all, knowing that wealth is so much more than money, but money being a piece of that, what would you say to somebody that says or is thinking, I don't have anything to get started?
I think everybody has something to get started. Okay. And it's just a question of how much, right? And I think that sometimes people feel like, okay, I don't think I have enough, but let's take a look at what you're doing. And, one of the exercises that I've done is to go through every single credit card and bank statement and start to, earmark. Okay, what is an absolute necessity? And I need to define what necessity is and what is a total want. Like, what have I subscribed to that I don't use enough that to keep subscribing to it? Or what are these monthly charges that I may have forgotten about and they keep coming out and I, don't pay enough of time to my credit card statement to say I need to stop this or stop that. I think everybody has money that they can find, so to speak, if truth be told, and that's really just taking a good hard look at what are you doing all the time and where is it that you can be shifting because you want something different, a year from now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now, whatever that looks like. I think you just have to get very clear on your goals and don't make it complex, that money is going to be there to help you, to protect you, and to start building assets that can pay you. And in order to do that, I need to just start with something. Even if it were, let's just hypothetically say $100 a month. You can start with $100 a month. You can put it into, I mean, there's plenty of online platforms that you can put it into, REITs, and I mentioned the stock slices. There's another so is it SoFi? All kinds of ways that you can get started with nominal dollars. But I think the key is you just need to start. And again, it goes back to, what is it that you're believing about where you're at in life? And if you believe you're in a certain place, then guess what? Nothing's going to happen. That's why you need to shift that mindset and get it into the right space to say, I can do this and I will do this and I am doing this.
She just wrapped up. We started along that thought process. We got into the meat and then we landed again on what's the next step? It's deciding that you are worth it. And knowing that it is going to be hard. It's going to be difficult to look at some of the ways in which you are spending money. It is going to be difficult to maybe learn and equate time on your calendar to go learn from YouTube University, as Beth mentioned. And yet, choose your heart. Sitting on a couch, not doing anything, moping about how you don't have any wealth is hard.
Mhm.
Learning how to build wealth is also hard. Choose your heart. Well done, Beth. So educational. I so appreciate it. One of my favorite things about podcast is wrapping it up on a fun and light note with lightning round questions. And so, Beth, a few words, one word, however you see fit. If money could talk, what nickname would it give you?
She's the boss.
Man, I love it. Okay. What is one splurge that you will absolutely never feel guilty about?
Oh, traveling with my family and just experiences. To me, experiences far outweigh buying a new piece of clothing any day of the week.
Could not agree more. Top three vacations. If you had to say for experience wise for people to go to, what are your favorite top three that you've done?
Italy's number one. I'm Italian, so my heritage, just visiting what my daughter calls the motherland. We just so enjoy it. The Caribbean, I can't go wrong in the Caribbean. Um, and I'd love to. I have yet to get to, but I'd love to get to Australia.
That's so great. What is one piece of outdated money or financial or wealth advice that you would like to officially ban?
Debt is bad. Because debt can, if you use it strategically, it can be a tool for leverage, and if you use it right. And I've seen that more and more, just how to leverage, and that comes from, now being in real estate, seeing the power of debt and what it can do. But yeah, I mean, I think we're taught to believe that, oh my gosh, you should not have any debt whatsoever. Well, that's not necessarily the case. I think that it's a powerful tool when used the right way.
Beautiful. Beth Underhill with Investing with Beth, and of course, her own group as well, Lifestyle Equities Group. If you want to learn more, connect with her in our show notes. Thank you for being so vulnerable in your life experiences that have gotten you to be the success that you are today, and empowering all of us to know that you can start and you can choose your heart today.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed my time, and I look forward to hearing from anyone in the audience and seeing how I can help them further.
Beth Underhill, Investing with Beth. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Working Moms Redefined podcast. And remember, choosing your hard is a choice that you get to decide. Thank you for listening to the Working Moms Redefined podcast. It is not lost on me that you chose to spend time together. Thank you. Let's connect outside of this space on socials. We'd love for you to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest. We've got it all to connect with you. If you feel as if someone in your life could be impacted by this message, feel free to share it. That is the biggest compliment. As we part ways together, remember, you can do hard things.